Hey guys, welcome back for another video. So I'm out in the shop again this morning. I am working on a little project. If you may have seen some of my other videos, I picked up a set of quick jacks this last, I don't know, winter, fall, something like that I've used a number of times, and I really like them. They work good. But I would like to be able to get my truck and we've got a Grand Cherokee that sits up a bit. I'd like the ability to get them a little bit higher in the air when I use the quick jacks without having to stack the blocks. So according to quick jacks, I mean, this is perfectly okay. Stack these blocks together, you get 5 inches of height. And it works okay if you have everything perfectly lined up parallel with the frame of the vehicle when you jack it up. But if you get off kilter just a little bit when you're setting up those quick jacks, which can be a little bit finicky, then sometimes these blocks want to get a little twisty and tippy, and I don't love stacking these things together. So QuickJack makes the SUV and truck adapter kit that you can buy. I think those things are $250 if you buy them from QuickJack. Most places are somewhere around that $250 point. I think I've seen them as low as maybe $230. But I decided that for that I can come up with something myself. So that's what I'm going to build today. So my plan here is I've got this is an old, what do you want to call it? It's a jack that goes in a basement basically, that sits underneath a beam, you know, that supports your floor joists. And I've had this thing kicking around forever, and I've actually taken a chunk or two off it to use for something else. And I'm going to use this in conjunction with some 1/4-inch plate, and I'm going to build something similar to those SUV adapters for, again, I've had this laying around, and I think I probably spent, I don't know, 15 or 20 bucks on some 1/4-inch plate that I think is going to work okay. And this is 3-inch pipe, and I don't know, at 6 feet it's rated at 16,000 pounds, so I'm going to make it like 6 inches, so it's probably rated at, you know, way more than I need. So this will be plenty of strength. Disclaimer: if you do something like this and you're going to be crawling underneath it, don't take my don't take what I'm going to do as a suggestion. Just take this as entertainment. Don't build something and go crawling underneath it unless you're perfectly comfortable doing it. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So I think what I'm going to do is, so these blocks measured up are 5 inches. 5 inches is just barely enough to get my truck tires off the ground. So I'm probably going to make this, what I think I'm going to do is cut the pipe 5.5 inches. That gets me a little bit more, plus I've got 1/4-inch plate, that's another 1/2 inch. So that gets me up to 6. And then I've got the option to actually use these pads on top of this to get it up even higher, or I may try to find some, I know they make some 1-inch thick rubber jack pad adapters, fairly cheap, that you can throw on there. 1 inch would be probably about perfect. So I'm going to I'll see what I end up doing here in the end, but I think for the length that I'm going to cut this pipe, I'm going to go with 5.5 inches. It seems about right. I'm going to cut 4-inch pieces. This is 4-inch wide by 1/4. I'm going to cut 4-inch pieces out of that. I think, yeah, 4 inches is the length of these blocks, so that'll work good. So I'll have I guess a 4x4 chunk of plate on top and one on the bottom, and then I've got a couple other ideas too that I think will make this thing work pretty well. So I'm going to do some cutting. I'll do some welding. We'll see what we end up with. I've got all my parts and pieces cut here. I had to, my trusty hand-me-down bandsaw isn't cutting very straight. I think that blade's actually bad. It's got some bad teeth on it, so it's causing it to kind of cut on an angle. So I did have to take the angle grinder and kind of square all these off, but I got them so that they're pretty close to square. Got my plates cut. So I'm just going to I'm going to take everything to the grinder and kind of soften the edges a little bit. I'll prep the steel here so it's so I've got some good bare steel for welding, and then it's time to start actually putting these things together. All right, so I took each section of pipe to the wire wheel and got the paint off of there. Took the flap disc and got all the mill scale off of the plates I'm going to be welding to. I'm going to make sure I get, good strong welds in these, obviously, so I want to make sure I get these prepped good. So I guess I'm at the point now where I'm going to go ahead and get these things all mocked up. I'll get them tacked into place, and then once I get them all tacked, I'll burn them all around and I'll be ready for some paint. All right, first one's done. 3 more to do. Nice and square. All right, so I got them all welded up. Everything came out nice and even. Welds are good. I'm not the world's greatest welder, but those turned out good. Should be nice and strong. So now what I'm going to do is get these cleaned up, and I'm going to go ahead and throw a coat of paint on them. And then my plan, I actually picked up some Plasti Dip in a can, some aerosol Plasti Dip. And what I'm going to do, I'll get them painted up so they don't rust, but then I'm going to take this Plasti Dip and I'm going to put several heavy coats on the flat surfaces. That way they won't slide around in the tray of the quick jack. And then also when they're on the, when they're underneath the frame of the truck, they won't want to slide. And also what I think I might do is I might pick up some cheap little pucks, little rubber pucks. You can get those to put on floor jacks. And then when I'm going underneath pinch welds, I think that'll work good. And everything will just stick together better with this Plasti Dip on there, I think. So I don't know, we'll see. I've never actually used this stuff before, but I'll give it a shot and see how it turns out. right, I'll let that set up and I'll hit it 2 or 3 more times.
All right, guys, there you go. The risers in action. So I got the rubberized coating sprayed on the tops and bottoms of them. And I did that primarily so it wouldn't slide around inside that steel tray. It works okay on the top, but what I actually intended to do, I've got this old tread off a tire, and I was going to cut 4-inch squares out of that and then screw or bolt those to the top of the risers. But I'm not sure if I'm even going to really mess with that. If I can find a good way to cut that tire, I might, but it works just fine the way it is, really. So with this, I think I built these 5.5 inches, if I remember right. And with that amount of rise, as you can see, I only have this on the first catch, and I've got plenty of room underneath those tires. There's probably 3 or 4 inches there, so I can, rotate tires and do anything that I need to do. What I like about this, so this is a Equinox, and the way this thing is made, let's see, if you look inside here, you see this chunk of frame here, that chunk of unibody frame. The way that sticks down there, this frame of the quick jack, when it comes up, it actually makes contact with that frame as opposed to the pinch welds over here. So my only option to get this car up is to double up the rubber blocks, which works, and I've done it a couple of times. But what I don't love is these rubber blocks, when you put rubber on rubber, they get a little bit wobbly. And with the risers that I built, this car sitting up there is very stable. So I like that better. The other thing, we also have a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and the rocker, all these cars have this plastic, rocker covers, it seems like. But on that Grand Cherokee, the plastic that covers the rockers actually sticks down a long ways. And so what I ran into is that the frame, when it would come up, would actually make contact with the plastic on that particular vehicle. So again, I had to double up these blocks, and I don't really like that. So these risers eliminates that problem. It's nice and stable, gets me lots of height. I haven't used them on my truck yet, but I have no doubt that I'm gonna have lots of clearance with my truck to do anything I need to do there. So these things are working great, and I think it's definitely an improvement over the rubber blocks. I can't remember, I mentioned when I first started this video, you can buy these things from QuickJack too, and I don't remember how much those things are. Are they like $175 maybe, something like that? They're pretty expensive. So for a chunk of pipe that I had laying around and some 1/4-inch steel plate, for these didn't cost me anything because it's just extra stuff that I had laying around. So I'm not necessarily advocating anybody build something like this and go crawl under a vehicle just because I'm doing it, but for me it works. I'm gonna keep using them, and I'm real happy with the way they turned out. So I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next video.